Reading, England, March 1896. A bargeman navigating the River Thames spots a brown paper parcel snagged in the reeds. When he pulls it aboard, he finds a weight of brick and the body of a small infant. Local police, examining the wrapping, find a faint name and address written in the corner: Mrs. Thomas, 26 Pigott's Road, Caversham. This single clue would peel back the layer of a Victorian society that had been ignoring a gruesome secret for decades. This wasn't a one-off tragedy. It was the endpoint of a business known as baby farming, a trade where the desperate paid the depraved to make their problems disappear. Behind that address was Amelia Dyer, a grandmotherly woman who had spent 30 years turning the nursery into a slaughterhouse. To understand Amelia Dyer, you have to understand the Victorian stigma of illegitimacy. Under the 1834 Poor Law Amendment Act, fathers of children born out of wedlock had no financial responsibility. Single mothers were shunned, often losing their jobs and families. Their only hope was baby farming, paying a woman to take the child and find it a new home or raise it for a fee. Amelia Dyer, a trained nurse and midwife, saw this as a lucrative opportunity. She began placing advertisements in local newspapers. Respectable couple would adopt a healthy child. Terms, £10. To a desperate mother, Amelia seemed like a savior. But the moment the money changed hands and the mother walked away, the child's fate was sealed. Amelia had no intention of finding homes. Her profit margin depended on the child's swift departure from this life. In her early career, Dyer used a passive method of killing. She would simply starve the infants, often drugging them with mother's friend, a syrup heavily laced with opium, to keep them quiet as they wasted away. If a doctor grew suspicious, she would simply move to a new town and change her name. She was even committed to a mental asylum several times to avoid police inquiries, a tactic that bought her years of freedom. However, by the 1890s, Dyer grew impatient with the time it took for a child to die of neglect. She shifted to active murder. She began using white dressmaker's tape to strangle the infants immediately after receiving them. She later remarked that she liked to watch the white tape sink into the flesh. By removing the waiting period, she could take in more children and collect more fees, sometimes accepting 2 or 3 babies in a single day. When police raided Dyer's home following the Thames discovery, they were hit by the stench of decay. They didn't find many bodies in the house. Dyer had become proficient at disposing of them in the river, but they found evidence of a massive operation. They recovered piles of baby clothes, vaccination certificates, and letters from frantic mothers begging for news of their children. Detectives also found a mountain of white dressmaker's tape. As they dragged the River Thames near her home, the scale of the horror became undeniable. One after another, small parcels surfaced. Each contained a child wrapped in linen and paper, weighted down with bricks. The ogress of reading had been using the river as a conveyor belt for her victims, believing the currents would carry her secrets to the sea. On June 10, 1896 at 9 a.m., Amelia Dyer was led to the gallows. She was 57 years old. When asked if she had anything to say, she reportedly muttered, "I have nothing to say." The trapdoor opened, and the ogress of reading was gone. Amelia Dyer's trial at the Old Bailey in May 1896 lasted only 2 days. Her defense attempted to plead insanity, citing her previous stays in asylums. However, the prosecution proved that her movements, her frequent changes of alias, and her systematic disposal of the bodies showed a woman in full possession of her faculties. The jury took only 4.5 minutes to find her guilty. In the Victorian era, even the most hardened criminals were disgusted by Dyer's crimes. She was sentenced to death by hanging. While in Newgate Prison awaiting her execution, she filled 5 notebooks with a confession, though she never revealed the true number of her victims. Estimates by historians suggest she may have murdered between 200 and 400 children, making her one of history's most prolific killers. Her death did not end the story. The public outcry following the trial was so intense that it forced Parliament to act. The Infant Life Protection Act was strengthened, requiring the registration of all adoptions and the vetting of anyone taking in children for payment. The police also established much stricter protocols for investigating missing infants. Amelia Dyer's legacy was written in blood, but it paved the way for the modern child welfare systems we have today. The case of Amelia Dyer remains a chilling reminder of how easily the most vulnerable can be exploited when society chooses to look away. She didn't operate in a vacuum. She operated in the gaps created by shame and poverty. She was a grandmother, a nurse, and a neighbor. A woman who used the most trusted roles in society to camouflage a predatory nature. Today, the River Thames at Reading is a place of recreation, but for historians, it remains the site of one of the world's most horrific crimes. Amelia Dyer didn't just take lives, she stole the future of hundreds of families. She remains the definitive baby farmer, a name that serves as a grim warning that the most dangerous monsters are often those who offer a helping hand when you are at your lowest. To his neighbors in Dumont, New Jersey, Richard Kuklinski was a successful businessman and a devoted family man. He drove expensive cars, hosted lavish backyard barbecues, and never missed a Sunday Mass. But every morning, when Richard kissed his wife goodbye and drove off to work, he wasn't going to an office. He was going to kill. Kuklinski earned the nickname the Iceman for his method of freezing his victims' bodies to mask their time of death, confounding forensic investigators. He claimed to have murdered over 100 people, serving as a freelance enforcer for the DeCavalcante crime family and the 5 families of New York. He lived a double life that lasted for 30 years, a life where he could be a loving father at 6:00 p.m. and a remorseless executioner by midnight. The roots of the Iceman's coldness lay in a childhood defined by extreme brutality. Born in Jersey City in 1935 to Polish and Irish immigrants, Richard's home was a war zone. His father, Stanley, was a violent alcoholic who beat Richard and his brothers relentlessly. In one instance, Stanley beat Richard's older brother, Florian, so severely that the boy died of his injuries. The family told the police he had fallen down the stairs. Richard learned early that survival meant being the strongest and the most heartless. By his teens, he was a massive, intimidating figure who roamed the streets looking for fights. He committed his first murder at age 14, beating a local bully to death and disposing of the body. For Richard, murder wasn't a moral crisis. It was a solution to a problem. He realized that if he felt nothing, he could do anything. In the late 1950s, Kuklinski's reputation for violence caught the eye of the Gambino crime family. Legend has it that Roy DeMeo, a high-ranking soldier, took Richard out for a drive. DeMeo pointed to a random man walking a dog and told Richard to kill him. Richard stepped out of the car, shot the man in the back of the head, then returned to the car without saying a word. DeMeo was impressed. Kuklinski became a freelance asset. Because he wasn't Italian, he could never be a made man, which made him the perfect, untraceable tool. He was used for the jobs the Mafia wanted to keep at arm's length. He became a specialist in disposal and innovation, using everything from guns and knives to crossbows and cyanide. He favored cyanide because it was quick and often mistaken for a heart attack in an autopsy, a silent killer for a silent man. Kuklinski took a craftsman's pride in his work. He was known to experiment with different poisons, often testing them on unsuspecting strangers in the city to observe the reaction. He famously used a spray bottle filled with cyanide, walking past a victim and giving them a light mist in the face. By the time the victim collapsed, Richard was 2 blocks away. His most famous innovation, however, was the industrial freezer. By storing a body in a commercial freezer for months or even years before dumping it, he effectively broke the chain of evidence. When the police found a body in a ditch in midsummer, the core temperature would indicate the person had died only hours ago, even if they had been missing for 2 years. This tactic kept him off the FBI's radar for decades. The most terrifying aspect of the Iceman was his ability to compartmentalize. His wife, Barbara, and their 3 children had no idea what he did. To them, he was a man with a short temper who worked hard in the film lab or trucking business. He was a provider who bought them the best clothes and sent them to private schools. This domestic stability was the only thing Richard seemed to value, yet even it was tainted by his nature. He was a domestic tyrant, prone to sudden outbursts of rage that kept his family walking on eggshells. He had created a perfect suburban cage. He was a man who could murder a business associate in a warehouse in the morning and attend a daughter's piano recital in the evening, never letting the 2 worlds touch. The Iceman's downfall came in 1986, not through forensic science, but through a high-stakes undercover operation. An ATF agent named Dominic Polifrone spent 18 months infiltrating Kuklinski's circle, posing as a fellow hitman. Polifrone recorded hours of conversations where Richard casually discussed murder-for-hire plots and the best ways to dispose of bodies using the itch, his term for cyanide. On December 17, 1986, the trap was sprung. Kuklinski was arrested at a roadside park while on his way to what he thought was a lucrative hit. Even as the handcuffs clicked, he remained eerily calm. He didn't fight. He didn't scream. He simply looked at the agents with the same cold, unblinking eyes that had been the last thing over 100 men had ever seen. Richard Kuklinski was convicted of 5 murders and sentenced to consecutive life terms. While in prison, he became a media sensation, participating in a series of televised interviews where he spoke with terrifying candor about his life. He claimed to have been involved in the disappearance of Jimmy Hoffa and the assassination of Paul Castellano. While many experts believe Richard exaggerated his body count and his role in major Mafia hits to build his own legend, his status as a cold-blooded sociopath was undeniable. He died in prison in 2006 at the age of 70. Richard Kuklinski remains a chilling case study in the mask of sanity, a man who proved that the person living next door, the man who waves to you over the fence, could be a monster that truly feels nothing at all.